Welcome to American Forged. I'm Professor David Holden. I'm a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq. I teach military history to U.S. Army officers. All these views are my own and in no way represent the U.S. government or the U.S. Army in any way. Today we are going to examine Afghanistan and President Biden's foreign policy and what it means for the U.S. Now let's make sure we're on the same page. I got about 60 seconds of videos here clipped.
Do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of an embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comfortable. Well, first of all, the mission hasn't failed yet. Well, first of all, the mission hasn't failed yet.
There was nothing that I or anyone else saw that indicated a collapse of this army and this government in 11 days.
Nothing except for a cable sent from the State Department directly to the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, on July 13th, stating that Kabul could fall as early as 31 August. So as you can see, this narrative is going to continue to unravel in the coming weeks.
President, thank you very much. Your own intelligence community has assessed that the Afghan government will likely collapse.
That is not true.
Because tonight, CBS News has learned that classified intelligence assessments painted an increasingly grim picture of the situation on the ground. And as recently as July, they assessed that the Taliban could capture the capital, Kabul, within weeks. But of course, that raises the question, why then, around the exact same time, was President Biden publicly insisting it was highly unlikely that the Taliban could overrun the country?
It's not like Biden didn't have warnings. He had military advisors letting him know that this was a poor idea. He had political advisors telling him that the outcome was unlikely to be favorable. In fact, even the Afghan government asked us to hold off on our pullout until October. Here's the reason why. Both in Iraq and Afghanistan, there's a campaigning season, which is during the summer, and that's where you have most of the fighting. It's not uncommon that during the winter, usually from October till next spring, attacks will fall off by 50, 75%, sometimes even higher. So by postponing our pullout to October, that would allow the Afghan government to get the footing. But that wouldn't work for Biden because he would need his September 11th media blitz, demonstrating that he brought home the soldiers after 20 years of conflict.
Was it scary outside?
Yes, it was very scary. It was very hard to find outside. Like a zombie. Yeah. Like a zombie.
So zombie land.
Yeah.
When the results of your foreign policy can be intermixed with a movie about a zombie apocalypse, and the footage is nearly indistinguishable, you have unequivocally redefined failure. But that fits with the current policy of the left to redefine everything. They've redefined pronouns, they've redefined American history, what racism is. I mean, only white people can be racist now. And what a boy and a girl is. It seems only sensible that they have moved on to redefining success in foreign policy. And this is the result. What you have witnessed in Afghanistan is woke foreign policy, because like wokeism, it flies in the face of reality. And the results are the same everywhere, chaos. Because when theory and hope fly in the face of reality, reality wins every time. The left has robbed America of our moral strength. We have always been a symbol of liberty and justice throughout the world. We have stood against tyranny across time. Rather now, the left claims that we are racist, that our system is systemically racist. And I would argue that is a sentiment that the Afghanis would not agree with, as they rush our planes and our walls. But Russia, Iran, China, the Taliban, they would gladly seize on the narrative of the left. After all, the Taliban has shown how effective propaganda can be, especially false propaganda. It's an effective weapon, and now they have one.
Yeah. So you don't think this could have been handled, this actually could have been handled better in any way? No mistakes?
No, I don't think it could have been handled in a way that we're We're going to go back in hindsight and look.
If a zombie apocalypse does not qualify as the rock bottom threshold of your foreign policy, pray tell what is? Where do you go from here? And I'm hopping mad about this. I couldn't believe what I heard on the television.
Our understanding that Americans have been called to the airport, but it's up to them to travel there at their own risk. Why isn't the U.S. providing any support, any transportation for them to get to Kabul?
Well, I would just go back to what our National Security Advisor discussed as it relates to the Taliban and discussions with them about safe passage for people who are coming to the airport. We've also
to be able to do that.
So it sounds like you're saying this depends on diplomacy with the Taliban. That's it. That's our only option, is getting them to agree to do this.
Well, let me add.
All right, you can't be in the video.
Why?
Because.
Oh, okay. Hello.
Have you ever seen a man that wants to be saved more than that man right there? I mean, he's looking for, that is a question that he does not want to answer. So you're saying, since our military has been largely pulled out, we have no other option but to depend on the terrorists to let Americans get to the airport. And he's like, somebody saved me from answering that question.
But can you offer any guarantee to the Americans and Afghan allies that if they remain there past the end of the month, U.S. troops will help them evacuate past the end of the month?
Weijia, our focus right now is on doing the work at hand and on the task at hand.
That when asked, the Biden administration said, well, we're not going to go get Americans outside of the airport. They have to make their way there. And then they were pressed, well, what happens on August 31st if you haven't got all Americans? Now, there's only one answer to that. It's, as Americans, we leave nobody left behind, and we will stay there till we get every American. But that wasn't the Biden administration's answer. Instead, they equivocated and said, well, we'll take care of what we can take care of now. The first and most important thing that a politician must do is protect their people. That first and foremost. And the fact that you didn't get all Americans out before this happened, that you didn't start this process back in January telling Americans they should leave, and instead you've given them 10,000 hostages. I pray that we can get them all out. Biden says that he can't think of a good reason for us to stay in Afghanistan. Well, I can give you several. Strategic positioning. See, Afghanistan gave us a sphere of influence in the middle of Asia. We could reach out and touch Pakistan, Iran, even China, and also Russia. China and Russia were happy to see us go. China has this Belt Road Initiative, which they are trying to build like a new Silk Road, where they're connecting themselves to resources throughout all of Asia. Well, now they're already making overtures to the Taliban, so they can come right through Afghanistan. Russia as well is happy to see us go, and we're no longer on the southern flank. So strategic positioning was a key reason to stay in Afghanistan. Human rights. There are roughly 37 million people in Afghanistan. Roughly 13 million of those are female who were able to go to elementary school, go to universities, become teachers, have their own businesses, their own bakeries. That's all gone. That allowed for women to go to coffee shops, to have photography businesses. They didn't have to wear a burqa. Now that we're leaving, all that progress is rolled back. And Biden's cowardice will force women to capitulate to a lifetime of indefinite household servitude. Staying in Afghanistan was costing us roughly 1% of our GDP. I was talking to my daughter about first, second, and tertiary effects. So you get your first effect, your second effect, and your third effect. The first one, sometimes you can quantify what the result of your action is going to be. But the second and third one, as we see here with Afghanistan, can be extremely difficult to predict. And sometimes they're far worse and far more important than the first consequence. And now we see Biden, he wanted to leave Afghanistan to save money, right? To end an endless war. Very few American soldiers killed since 2016. Every life lost is tragic. And at the individual level, the loss of a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, a brother, sister, it's never worth it. But it is at the corporate level. It can be worth it for the nation at large. And it can be worth it for the people that we were there fighting with roughly 55,000 Afghani soldiers died over the course of this war. And now, what about U.S. allies? How willing are they going to be to follow us? We are an unreliable partner, and we've emboldened our adversaries, especially China, Russia, and Iran. Certainly, Taiwan is looking enticing to the Chinese. What about some of the Baltic states? Russia might be looking at those. See, we haven't signaled military weakness. We signaled to the world political and moral weakness. Understand this, military power isn't just about material and technology, or even manpower for that matter. Power is about a willingness to use it. We have the power, but we lack the will to use it. And that is an incredible weakness on the geopolitical stage.
Prominent families often forget a simple truth. I found.
And which truth is that?
Knowledge is power.
Seize him. Cut his throat. Stop. Wait. I've changed my mind. Let him go. Step back 3 paces. Turn around. Close your eyes. Power is power.
Do you think the Taliban fears Biden? The scene from Game of Thrones illustrates an important point. Knowledge isn't power. Our debacle in Afghanistan proves that. One needs to competently use knowledge. But more to the point, however distasteful it might be to American sensibilities, is the currency of the realm in geostrategic politics. 2,000 years ago, Jewish rebels seized a fortress named Masada. It was a Roman fortress, perched upon a plateau nearly 400 feet high. In response to this, the Romans marched a legion, nearly 9,000 soldiers, deep into the desert. They surrounded this plateau, and for over a year they built a ramp. After a year, they marched up that ramp and broke down the gates. Most of the Jewish zealots had committed suicide and jumped off the cliff. For the Romans, it wasn't about Masada. It wasn't about the fortress. It wasn't even about the zealots so much as it was about power. It was about sending a message to the rest of the world that no matter where you are, no matter what you do, Rome can reach you and you will get Roman justice. And it was a message not lost in the rest of the world. Biden has done the opposite of this. America has been humiliated on the world stage. We have deserted our allies. We have created a humanitarian crisis for the women of Afghanistan. We have left massive stockpiles of weapons for the Taliban. We've invited aggression from our adversaries around the world. We've abandoned the sacrifices of Americans who died fighting in Afghanistan. And now we've abandoned Americans all around Afghanistan to the mercies of the Taliban. Because Joe Biden, in his infinite wisdom, decided to pull out his military before he got his civilians out. That is unforgivable. And it's nothing but incompetence. This is not the American way. Hey, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and leave a comment below, and I'll respond. I promise.